Before the Holocaust, there was a very big Rebbe called Husiatyn Rebbeh. Husiatyn. And his name was Rabbi Friedman. He was actually nifter after the war in 1949. This story is before the Holocaust. A chassid sent a kvittel with his messenger to the Rebbe. A bracha for all of his children. Parnasa, Shalom Bayis, a whole list. The Rebbe took a look at the kvittel and he said, he's missing a name. He gave back the kvittel, didn't accept it. He said, go back and tell him he's missing a name on the kvittel. So the messenger goes back to his boss, comes in, he says, the Rebbe didn't give a bracha, he didn't accept the kvittel here, he gave it back, and he said, you're missing a name on your kvittel. So the man wrote to the Rebbe, it's true, I had a daughter, and she went off the derech. She was a violinist, and she ended up going to learn by the Haskalah and playing violin on Shabbos and joining an orchestra. She's dead to me, and that's why I didn't put her on my kvittel. The messenger went back to Husiatyn Rebbeh, and the Rebbe says, I'm not accepting the kvittel. Bring it back to your boss and tell him this lesson. Menemt nicht a kind kein mul arup fin cheshbon. We never ever take a child off of the account. You never ever say, this is no longer my child. Menemt nicht a kind kein mul arup fin cheshbon. So the guy goes ahead and he goes back to his boss. He says, here's the kvittel again. The Rebbe says he's not accepting it because you're never allowed to give up on a child. You're never allowed to deduct a child from a kvittel, from your life, from your being. The man had no choice. He rewrote the kvittel and he added on this child's name. And then the Holocaust came. This man's wife and his children were all murdered al Kiddush Hashem. His aunts, his uncles, his nephews, his nieces, his cousins. He was the only one who survived. And he made his way to America. And in those days, if you had nothing, you had nobody, no place to eat. So then after shul on Friday night, you would find somebody to eat by. He went to shul Friday night, a broken man. It's hard to fathom. Hard to imagine. He lost everything in the world. After shul, a young man came over to him and said, Shalom Aleichem, do you need a place to eat? He said, yes, please. He said, come with me. He walked with this older man, this broken man. He took him home to his house. He opened up the door and he introduced him. He said, oh, this is my wife. And the man nearly fainted. This was his daughter that he took off of his kvittel and gave up on. She ended up being in Berlin in an orchestra, and she got a tip that the Nazis are going to come look for her. She ran away to Austria. She ran across the world. She ended up in America. She ended up being chayzer b'tshuva. And here she was with a frum husband, keeping Shabbos and hosting survivors. So it turns out that all of the Yiddish nachas that this man ever would have, all of his dairis, his entire offspring only came from this girl that he was ready to write off. Because the Rebbe taught us, no matter what it is, they're Mechal Shabbos, they join the Haskalah, they go to Berlin, it doesn't matter. You never know from which kid you'll have nachas. Never give up on your children. We have stories upon stories of thousands of kids who did kol davar aser, who later on in life came back and gave nachas to their parents, and gave nachas to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and built a bayis nema b'Yisrael. You never give up on your kids, no matter what they do. And you always keep the connection fully open with love, with acceptance, with support, and avada with prayer, with davening for them. Because that's what Husiatyn Rebbeh taught us.